Okay, shalom. This is an incredible lesson. It's hopeful. I'm just hoping I can get out in time for the new year, Rosh HaShanah, which is tonight. This is a whole story bound up with the story of the Akeda, which is certainly read on Rosh Hashanah. It's to do with the whole shofar and the whole binding of Yitzchak and everything else. However, we're going to be having a look at a really wonderfully mystical level to this. So Yitzchak loves Esav. There's a great mystery bound up in this. The hidden light of the Yechidah. Let's see how it all relates to these hairy hands of Esav. Right, so I'll just bring myself on board here. Right, hopefully that's me, shalom. So I've got this verse from Genesis. It's actually Genesis 28 there. I've just put 26 by accident. And Isaac loved Esav because his game was in his mouth, but Rebecca loved Yaakov. Right, let's go and have a look at some of these gematria. So straight away we've got this very significant number. If we just look at this part now, and Isaac loved Esav, it comes to 1009, 145 ordinally, and etc. Let's go and have a look at some of these numbers. Straight away then, we've got this, the Mispar Gadol of Satan, the accuser, the guardian angel of Esav himself, also comes to 1009. Okay, so why might this be so? I pointed this out on the last lesson, but I just wanted to show you the gematria behind this. And this is my take on it. And I think it's very, very valid. It's all going back to the light of the Yechidah. Yitzchak was Abraham's Yechidah, his only one. And we know that instead of Yitzchak, Takath Bano, there was, according to Yalkut Shimene, it was not a ram. The ram, which by the way is from the 6 days of a creation. You know, it's one of the things that were created at the 6 days of creation, the Ram of the Akedah. And the initial letters of that, Meshesheth, Yameh, Bereshith, come to Mashiach ben Yosef. You can rearrange the initial letters to be Mashiach ben Yosef. So this ram, created at the 6 days of creation, was, according to Yalkut Shimene, Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef, according to Vilna Gaon, is the Yechidah, along with the concept of Metatron. Okay, this is the soul of Adam that didn't fall, that he hadn't received because he hadn't participated in a Shabbat. So the Yechidah had not been given to Adam from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We're going to come across that later. This is unbelievable stuff, by the way. And then he fell. And then it's our job now to sort good from bad. We're in this continual process of sorting truth from lie, essentially, good from bad. We've got two powerful forces that make that difficult. The Yechidah, which is the good, the absolute good, that perfect part of Adam, has descended into this exile with us, and it's associated with Takath Bano. This is the Ram, is Mashiach ben Yosef, descended into this exile with us in order for us to be perfected, in order for Adam to be perfected and raised up to his place back in Gan Eden. How did that light manage to come into this world? It had to be garbed up, because for everything in this world of duality, it's got to be equal opposite. So for everything to do with revelation, there's also got to be an equal concealment. This is the most powerful aspect of our own soul, and it's perfect. That's why Yeshua was called perfect. He was without sin. It means he came from the part of Adam that didn't fall. It was perfect. It remained without blemish. It didn't participate, the level of Adam's soul that didn't participate in the eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There is no evil in him. So this is a concept, but this whole story has got then garbed up in the story of Jesus Christ as what we find in this world and what we find in Roman Catholicism. It's been garbed up in layers and layers of lies and delusion and falsehood, equivalent to Satan, because this light cannot come in without an equal opposite force. The equal opposite force is Satan himself. That's how bright it is. That in order to allow that light to come in, you've got to have such a force. So, why did Yitzchak love Esav then? Because Yitzchak is Avram's Yechidah. So this light is very much associated with Yitzchak, and he knows in order for that light to come into this world, it's got to be equally garbed. And he knows the only way that that light can come into this world is via Esav, the guise of Esav, the hairy hands of Esav. Okay, so there's the connection. That's and Yeshua's it's the soul level of Mashiach ben Yosef is the Yechidah, the level of soul, and it's the overall, it's the general soul of Knesset Israel, the congregation of Israel, is the Yechidah, it's the soul that unites everything together as one. It's the soul level of self-sacrifice. Okay, it's the highest level of soul. So straight away we've got this phenomena. So the love that Isaac had for Esav is because he knew that light could come into the world, but it would come in garbed up. Esav, because game was in his mouth, he knew how to survive out in the world, you know, and be still garbed up in this light, have an inner purpose to that reality that was going to help mankind. And that's exactly what the Roman Catholics have done. They've taken this light out into the world. They've taken the light out into the world garbed up in the 70 gods of Esav. And it's our, the 70 gods of Esav. It's our job to wrestle with that force of illusion and falsehood and delusion and lies, to reveal that Yechidah within. You know, the crown that fell the furthest. Yalkut Shimoni says that Mashiach ben Yosef, I'm pretty sure it's Yalkut Shimoni that says this, Mashiach ben Yosef fell the furthest. He's protecting us from entering the 50th level of impurity during exile, so that we have always got the opportunity to do teshuvah. If we entered into the 50th level of impurity, there's no place to return from that. He's also taking the punishment upon himself to suffer on our behalf for the sins that we commit during exile, when we are vulnerable and susceptible to the lies and the falsehood of Satan himself, and we end up serving Satan. We're not attached to the inner reality, we're provoked by the outer reality. Our ego is provoked by this outer reality. It's a war against our soul and our ego. We've all got to go through this. It's part of our refinement. Our soul is perfect, by the way. It's our body that needs refinement. This is a very, very, very big task. Okay? But we will get there. It's like Yitzchak's on the left-hand side, the feminine side, isn't it? Which represents the body. And you've got Gevurah, which is like severity and might. It's also discipline, judgment, death and darkness is all contained on that side. You've got to raise that up to Binah, the joyful mother of children. So go from a state of poverty, barrenness, rejected, dejected, diminished, to a state of being a joyful mother of children, reattached to the divine masculine. And this is what we're trying to do. We're all in a state of we're all in a state of poverty and diminishment. You've got to remember that is not it's not our final destination to remain at that place. We've got to work on ourselves to elevate ourselves back up. That is teshuvah. That's our work to do. We're in the process of teshuvah now. We work at this judgment day. Will come tomorrow, Rosh HaShanah, and then a sentence will be passed on Yom Kippur, and then God willing we'll build our sukkah 4 days later. So in the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkoth, we'll be building our sukkah, our temporary dwelling of joy. This is all associated with Bina, and that's the place where we've got to return to. We've got to transform that experience of Yitzchak, Gevurah, into we've got to elevate it up from fear to joy. It's associated with the fear of God, the love of God and the fear of God. We've got to elevate, because fear in itself can be is not the final teshuvah. The final teshuvah is to elevate that fear, that discipline, that effort and might and determination that you've got to complete the task from a place of fear to a place of joy, to elevate it up. So you've got love and joy. Mashiach ben Yosef represents joy. Mashiach ben Dawid represents love. And these are the primary emotions with which we serve Yotei-Waweh. So we're wanting to return to that place. So all linked to major concepts. Okay. Let's have another look at this then. What else is this related to? This is taken from Ezekiel 37, I do believe, when talking about the two sticks. And it mentions, and all the house of Israel. Primarily, Satan got, the Yechidah got dressed up to come after the lost house of Israel. Because this Yechidah essentially is a revelation of the name of Yotei-Waweh at the level above the Torah. Because they was not faithful to keep the Torah, they had no merit according to the Torah. So they had to be redeemed in a way that transcended the requirements of the Torah. And this was only possible through the name of Yotei-Waweh revealed above the Torah, which is written about in the book of Micah, the 13 attributes from the level of Keter, the level of Yechidah. And those two revelations of the name Yotei-Waweh need to be united as one. The revelation as contained within the Torah of Moshe needs to be yoked to the revelation of the name that was revealed through the story of Yeshua HaNatzri, who is the Mashiach ben Yosef, who was an incarnation of the level of soul of Yechidah. It was the Yechidah of Yotei-Waweh, the name of Yotei-Waweh. This has 284 is the ordinal for all the books of the Torah. So the house of Yosef, the stick of Yosef, is not about something contrary to Torah. It's a fulfillment of the Torah. It needs to be united with the Torah of Moshe. That will happen with David. 127, by the way, is a filling out of the name Yeshua when the Vav is filled with a Yud. The first filling of Yeshua when the Vav is filled with a Yud. So this whole process of the Mashiach ben Yosef descending into exile, garbed up as Satan himself, the gods of Esav, is to come and get all the house of Israel. Because they are a testimony. They are a witness to the name of Yotei-Waweh. We've got to transform the concealment into revelation. And this is very significant, the fast of the 9th of Tevet. I can't go into too much depth in this lesson, but basically, within Judaism, the fast of the 9th of Tevet is really associated with the first pope, who they believe was a Jewish infiltrator into the Christian movement. They put him in there for the purpose of leading the believers in Yeshua to Rome and separating them off from the Jewish people that didn't believe that Yeshua. You can look it up, fast of the 9th of Tevet, or look up 9th of Tevet. I might try and put some teachings, but this is teaching to be found within the Talmud, Talmudic teachings and the teachings of the sages. There's so much hidden. I'm wanting to do a whole teaching on that, but I can't do it right now. But anybody who knows about this 9th of Tevet and can see the link between the Yechidah, Mashiach ben Yosef, Satan, and all the house of Israel that need to be gathered in, because Yotei-Waweh made promises to the house of Israel, and how that has been accomplished through what happened with the infiltration of Jewish sages into the Christian Messianic, the early Jewish Messianic movement, the Messianic Jewish believers in Yeshua, and then leading those believers to Rome. Okay, so that Simon Peter essentially became the first pope, but according to Judaism, even the teachings, even the New Testament was infiltrated. It was all an infiltration from the sages. they Simon Peter was an infiltrator, and he led the believers over to Rome, and it was all part of some plan from the Jewish sages to do that. My understanding of it is that even if there was evil intentions in that, it was essentially selling Joseph to Rome, wasn't it, into slavery. Even if there was evil intentions behind that, like Joseph said, what you did for evil, God did for good. God had plans for that, because God wanted to split the two camps up, Joseph and Yehudah, and let them face off Esav. Both houses have had to go up against Satan. The forces of Satan, and both will have to wrestle against the forces of Esav, because we don't get our name Israel until we've defeated Satan during exile, till we've fought off all this falsehood, till we get to reveal the truth that's hidden. Od Yosef Chai. Yosef is still alive. The soul of Mashiach ben Yosef is still alive. The Yechidah, the perfect unfallen aspect of Adam's soul, is still alive. We can use whatever terminology we wish. It's all connected, and like I say, go and have a look at it if you're not familiar with this concept of the 9th of the Tevet, the fast of the 9th of Tevet. There's things that can be found. I might put some links in the description, but it was all hidden, secret dealings, okay, that were orchestrated. It didn't happen by chance. It was all totally orchestrated. Joseph was sold to Rome. Okay, square ordinal of the fast of the 9th of Tevet, which is is connected to the yacht site, I think, the day of death of Simon Peter, who was considered a martyr. He martyred himself for the sake of the Jewish people, to lead off the believers in Yeshua to Rome and become the first pope. It was an infiltrated pope. It's all very interesting stuff. Square ordinal 2308, which is 2 times 1154, 4 times 577. All they are significant numbers. But as we can see, Isaac loved Esav. I'm going to bring both of these up. Where do we get this from then? Okay, I've just taken those off because I couldn't figure out what I've put them on for. But this, however, is the three main aspects of the Mashiach. Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben Ephraim. Okay, they come to 1731, which is a very significant number in itself. But that's 3 times 577. So we've got a link up here, which is 2 times 577, and a link down to here. 577 is Yeshu, and this is the derogatory term, the rabbinic to be found in rabbinic Judaism. Yeshu, it's a concept of having Yeshua having his name erased and his memory. Yimach Shemo V'Zikro, and it's also the initial letters of Vayelechu Shneim Yachtau backwards, and the two of them went together. Talking about Abraham and Yitzchak. Vayelechu Shneim Yachtau, the two of them went together. So that's a repeated phrase. So as we can see, it's linked. This whole concept of Yeshu is part of the concealment. It's part of the falsehood of Satan. It's part of the gods of Esav, because it's false. It's concealing the ultimate truth, what Yod-Heh-Waw is trying to do for all humanity in this Edomite exile through the soul level of the Yechidah, which is Mashiach ben Yosef. And that's garbed up very much in the story of Yeshua HaNotzri and everything that's come as a result of that. The whole Vatican, the whole priesthood, the whole, everything that's come forth out of that, to separate this, to conceal the truth about Yosef, the Yechidah, and Yeshua HaNotzri, a Hebrew man, not a God. A Hebrew man that came at the soul level of Yechidah, the only person that's ever incarnated fully that level of perfect soul. This is what we've got to assume is the truth. Because he's the Mashiach. So this level of soul of Yechidah was incarnate within this person. He's the millennial Mashiach ben Yosef. There's generational Mashiach ben Yosefs, people who have a spark of that. But we're talking about the millennial, just as there's a millennial Moshe, but a generational Moshe too. So we've got to understand that the generational Moshe, Mashiach ben Yosef, comes every generation. But the ultimate millennial level was Yeshua HaNotzri. And then, but the truth of what happened there has been garbed up in Satan through this, related to this, what happened that's associated with the fast of the 9th of Tevet, the whole infiltration of Simon Peter into, and to lead them off into Rome, and he became the first Pope of Rome. It's all linked. It's all linked. It's all just Yod He Waw He, in a very hidden way, accomplishing his will, which is to rectify all humanity. To the level of to really to the soul level of Mashiach ben Dawid. Right, so then we've got this concept, which is to be found in the square ordinal, which is 11 times 203. What is 203? 203 is Le'etz Ehad, to the one tree. So you get the stick of Yehuda, the stick of Yosef, and you create one stick out of them, one teaching. The stick represents a teaching, one revelation of the name of Yod He Waw He, united, inner and outer, within the Torah, above the Torah, so that powerful revelation of the name of Yod He Waw He above the Torah cleanses away all the judgment and the darkness to be found in the revelation contained within the letter of the Torah. Okay, the all-merciful, all-seeing, all-white eye of Keter washes clean the two eyes of Zer and Pim that have both black and red within them, death and judgment. That's associated also with Yitzchak. So you're removing from Yitzchak the death and the judgment that's associated with Gevurah, which is the sphere associated with Yitzchak. So it becomes joy, instead of fearing all this judgment, and it's what you wash that clean. So you've got in service to Yod He Waw He, love and joy. This is very interesting because if we look here, this is the Mispar Gadol, and just wait a minute, let me get this right. The square ordinal plus the ordinal comes to 2,378, which is 2 times 1,189. What is 189? 189 is the Mispar Gadol of Melech Goyim, King of the Nations. Yod He Waw He is a plan to subdue all the nations, which are represented by Esav. The guardian angel over the nations is Satan himself. So this has all got to be subdued to the side of holy. There's all kinds of wonderfully mysterious things in all that as well. But 149, for example, if you take the ordinal of the last phrase in Torah, before the eyes of all Israel, and the ordinal of the first verse of Torah, Bereshith bara Elohim et hashamayim wa et haaretz, the last portion before all the eyes of Israel comes to an ordinal of 149, and the ordinal for the first verse of Torah, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, comes to 2 times 149, 298. So there's an equivalence between the end of the Torah and the beginning of the Torah. And 149 is the regular of Melech Goyim. What's that telling us? The Torah is not just for our soul. It's to bring the entire nations into subjugation to Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh being their king. It's to rectify physicality. It's to rectify the body. It's to rectify the vessel that contains the light. It's to rectify the nations. It's to rectify the divine feminine. So it's like King David won't just be king over Israel, he'll be king over the nations also, bring them to a place of shalom. It's all connected and it's all wonderful, and we can see that Isaac loved Esav. This is connected in two ways, because the triangular number is also 1189. So that's a very, very powerful connection to this phrase, and Isaac loved Esav. There's a purpose in this. Neither shall those who hate me for naught wink their eyes. So this is quite a mystical. It's talking about the eyes as well. The ayin. That's the letter that's missing from Yeshua. Okay. And Joseph was hated by his brothers, and they removed his eye because they saw him as Esav. They treated him as if he was a rasha instead of righteous. They hated Joseph. That's why they sold him into slavery. But you got to understand that this light is so bright. It needs to be garbed up. You know, it's at the level of self-sacrifice. So that means that everything becomes obliterated and nullified completely in it. There's no separation between that and godliness. So you need to garb that up if you want to maintain your own self-identity to a certain degree. And obviously Yehuda needs to maintain his own self-identity. It's the will of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh for this to be so. The Torah of Moshe needs to maintain its own identity. It cannot be completely nullified by the light of Yeshua, the light of this, the light of the Mashiach ben Yosef, the Yechidah, the revelation of the name at the level of Keter. So there's got to be something happen in order to ensure that doesn't happen. So what happens? The light gets garbed up. The revelation gets concealed in Satan, in the nations. It gets put into a disguise. So you maintain your identity until you reach the level of Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, and you're able to unite those two lights together as one, without one nullifying the other, but they become one in the hand, one teaching in the hand of Mashiach ben David. Okay, it's probably worthy of a big meditation, that, but the regular plus the ordinal comes to 1189. So there's some connection in that. You know, we have got to. There's also a connection in what the rabbis say, that they could never kill the Yetzirah, the evil inclination. They had to blind it. It's a whole story I can't go into now, but it's written in the Talmud. You know, they'd been very successful in getting rid of the spirit of idol worship. And they thought, well, if we've been so successful to remove idol worship from Israel, let's remove the power of the evil inclination. So for 3 days they bound up the evil inclination, just as Yitzchak was bound, isn't the Akedah. So they bound up the evil inclination, and then there was no egg laid in the entire of Jerusalem. So they realised, this serves a purpose. It's it's our drive to survive. It's necessary. We wouldn't procreate. We wouldn't build a home. We wouldn't do anything that required. I think it's called like the equivalent in Young, because I've just been studying about this a little bit. I mean a little bit. It's libido, that drive, that will, that desire to want to go forward in the world. You know, Esav was a man of the field. He knew what to do in the field of life. You can't completely and totally kill that, else there's no life. You know, you've got to have certain drives that are absolutely totally essential, but what you can do is blind them. You know, so that the power is reduced. Okay, and it looks like this is then connected to Yeshua, because he had his ayin removed, and the letter ayin is exactly spelt the same way as I. So it is I removed, because he was seen as Satan, but in a way he was, because that light was garbed up as Satan. It's all symbolic, but really it's not. It's Satan hiding and concealing the Yechidah that is working to gather in the lost house of Yosef, and, you know, it will ultimately be a revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. King David needs to come and recognise that. Again, we've got this taken from Isaiah 64:3. No, Ayin, exactly the same word, the letter missing from Yeshua's name, has ever seen a God besides you. The Mispah Gadol of this is 3006, which is 2 times 1503, which is a very important number. The regular and ordinal plus the Mispah Gadol regular and ordinal come to 4756, which is 4 times 1189, which is connected up here. It's also connected to that as well. Isaac loved Esav. This 3006 will come, is Give Truth to Yaakov. I'll bring it up shortly. The ordinal and plus the Mispah Gadol ordinal come to Mashiach ben Dawid. The spelling out of Mashiach ben Dawid, when Dawid has got the additional Yod, that means he's rectified. There's all kinds of very significant numbers here. The 1316, I do believe, is Wayikra, when the Aleph, the small Aleph of Wayikra, becomes a big Aleph. It's written small in the Torah scroll. It represents Moshe in a very diminished state. Moshe represents the Mashiach in a very concealed and diminished state. But that little Aleph should really be an Aleph Gadol. If you were to replace the Aleph with a 1 to 1,000 for an Aleph Gadol, the big numbering of the Aleph, it would come to 1316, which is Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben Dawid, plus Yeshua, plus Yeshu, added up. You've got to have, even the concealment is part of the revelation. And they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt. So again, we've got the 1503. This here is connected to that in that way. It's also the Mispah Gadol regular, ordinal come to 3567, which is 3 times 1189. It's connected to all these. There's a double connect between this and this. Yosef is very hidden. Even his coffin was hidden. It was very difficult. There was no redemption without the coffin. Why? Because the bones of Yosef, i.e. all that Mashiach ben Yosef has been doing in the souls of the lost house of Israel during this entire Edomite Israel for good. We're not talking about garbed up as Satan. We're talking about the inner light that has been functioning to do good in this world. Good deeds, acts of kindness, service to God in truth. And all the effort that they have made, even whilst they have been subject to the forces of Satan and the concealment and the lies, still, even dressed up, the inner good that has occurred through Christianity and through Islam, the good that has come into this world as a result of God disguising the Yechidah in this way, and then reaching out to all the lost souls that it's reached out to through that story that conceals what's really been going on. So those good deeds are what caused the sea to split. The coffin of Yosef on account of his good deeds. So we need that if we want to get through redemption. We need the power of all those good deeds that are held in the domain of Satan at this time. These good deeds are held like the bones of Joseph in the bottom of the river Nile, with all the powers of Egyptian magic to keep them in there, because Egypt, the other side, is empowered on account of those good deeds, are enslaved in Egypt. We need them as much as we need Bnei Israel to get out of Egypt. There is no redemption. The children of Israel don't leave Egypt without those bones. Moshe knew this. And he went Srach Asher to get the bones. It's the same. The good deeds of the Christians need to be redeemed. The good deeds of the Muslims need to be redeemed from the side of unholy to the side of holiness. And we can only do that when we're able to perceive that hidden in all that is Yod He Wah in truth. Just as hidden in the guise of Pharaoh was a Jewish man, the soul of a Jewish man, the soul of Joseph. And it's the truth that sets us free. 1764 is 4 times 441. 441 is a meth. Truth. The truth shall set you free. This is even significant because it's 5 alifs, isn't it? Alif can be a concealment but also a revelation. So that's all connected and it's wonderful. And there we can see Titena Methli Yaakov, one of the 13 attributes of mercy, at the level of Keter. 1503, exactly the same. But the 153 is the sign that Yeshua, after he'd gone up to heaven and descended, when he appeared to his disciples who didn't recognize him, so we presumed that soul was incarnate in another body temporarily, but he came and it was basically, this is code name for saying, I'm going down into Esav at the right time, bring me out. And the initial letters of this are Kof, Nun, Gimel. 153, Kof is 100, Nun 50, and Gimel is 3. And they are the initial letters of Corona, Gam. Karo, Na, Gam. Call out now also. And it's also the ordinal of it's the ordinal of from 20 years and above, and also who has ascended into heaven and descended. And the initial letters of that spell, it's also the regular, 5 times the regular for who has ascended into heaven and descended, comes to, I think it's 765, which is 5 times 153, and the ordinal is 153, but the initial letters spell Esav, from Esav. So you link that all together, and it's like Corona Gam. This was the 153 fishes in the dragnet. I've talked about this in many of my teachings. This was a sign to say at the time, at this time, when 153 becomes significant, bring me out of Esav. Bring me out from Esav, Esav, who has ascended into heaven and descended. The initial letters in Hebrew spell Esav, from Esav. And they come to 153 ordinally. And even the regular is 5 times 153. And that's related to 765 is also related to Shilach Moshe Avdo. Shlach Moshe Avdo, I sent Moshe my servant, and the initial letters of that are Shema, got to hear, Hero Israel. It's all wonderful connections to it, but it's also 8 times light, 8 times awe. And Corona Gam, even the rabbis were saying when we had the coronavirus, this was a very significant global shift. That coronavirus signified the beginning of the end, because that was the sign that he's got to start coming out of Egypt now, got to start raising up the bones of Joseph from the Nile, got to counter all these forces of magic, the forces of darkness to hold his coffin there. Now to get it out, we're off. We're on our way out We're going from Esav. We're only way to go from Esav to redemption, from exile to redemption, is with the bones of Yosef. We've got to take them. We won't get out without that. And then we've got this, which is absolutely wonderful. And bring them close, one to the other, into one stick, and they shall become one in your hand. And as we can see, the Mispah Gadol, regular and ordinal, comes to 4,466, which is 22 times 203, or double this. So we know all this process is linked to this. This is where we're heading, the one stick. The outer and the name of Yod Heh is revealed in Torah, yoked to the name revealed in above the Torah. Or another way we can say it is the Torah of Moshe linked and yoked to the experience that we've experienced as a human race throughout 2,000 years of Edomite exile. When we yoke the Torah up to Yod Heh, while we're fulfilling his Torah in real life situation, that's the one stick. Because that what we've experienced, the Yechidah garbed up in Esav, is the Torah of Mashiach ben Yosef. It's the stick of Yosef. The Mashiach ben Yosef hidden in this exile, and the complex scenarios that have played out for those 2,000 years as a result of that is the Torah of Mashiach ben Yosef. That needs to be linked up to the Torah of Moshe, because that is Yod Heh Waweh, fulfilling his Torah, which is a revelation of his name. We can fulfill the Torah, but it's not until we recognise about Yod Heh Waweh fulfilling his Torah that we have the truth. Because from our own inner exiled perspective, we are not going to see the full name revealed in the full authority and sovereignty and kingship of Yod Heh Waweh fulfilled until we are able to yoke up human history, the last 2,000 years of Edomite exile, to Yod Heh Waweh fulfilling the Torah of Moshe. And that's what we have to do, because that's where the revelation, that's where the Torah becomes the name of Yod Heh Waweh, the original Torah, which is just a revelation of the name of Yod Heh Waweh, the absolute authority and sovereignty of Yod Heh Waweh, the oneness of Yod Heh Waweh. It's beautiful. Right, so, okay, I just had to go correct that. Oops. So we've got this now. This is just a bit more extended, isn't it? Because this is, and Isaac loved Esav because his game was in his mouth. Ki tzayid befir or befiv. Okay, I would pronounce that slightly different, but anyway, I'll just leave it at that. So this is just something that is really quite phenomenal, because we're talking about this being concealed, the light of the Yechidah concealed. We saw how the Yechidah didn't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but we've got to contend with that. There's got to be equal opposite force to the part of Adam's soul that did eat and is now subject to that sorting between good and evil, between light and dark, between lie and truth. So this number is quite significant. I'm just going to have a look at this number first, because it's the tree of life. Okay, the tree of life, Etz HaChaim. And we've got this number. So we can understand there's an equivalency between this and the tree of life, because when we see the reason why Yitzchak loved Esav and the whole purpose in that the only way that light of the Yechidah could find expression in this world is with the concealment of Esav, but there's an ultimate end to that, to refine the entire of humanity, to get to the level of Mashiach ben Dawid, where then this crown of Yechidah becomes his crown, without totally and utterly nullifying him by that light. You know, Mashiach ben Dawid is higher. Even though the soul level of Yechidah is higher than Mashiach ben Dawid, Mashiach ben Dawid is ultimately higher than Mashiach ben Yosef, because of this whole process of refinement that has been occurring since the eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So we've got this 233. We know this is connected then to the concept of tree of life. However, look at this. We've got all these different fruit. This is the fruit. I did a session on this last lesson. This is the fruit. I think it's Rabbi Amram Gaon. I can't quite remember his name, but I'm just saying that from memory. This was one rabbi that said the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil was a nut. In the Talmud, however, there's 3 mentions of different fruit, one being grape, one being fig, and one being wheat. So all these filled, and I've had to specify as I've filled them, because I have filled them slightly different. I didn't purposely do that. I did it by accident. But obviously there's no accidents. So I did that. I'm not normally very consistent, because normally what happens is I have programmed my fillings up and then it automatically works them out. But when I'm just taking individual words like this and doing it myself, there's probably a tendency to fill them differently. So that's how this came about as this. They're all valid fillings. They're all different ways of filling letters, are all totally valid. Okay, there is no accidents though. Like I say, normally I would have drawn the numbers off a pre-programmed. I had to program it up with what I wanted each letter filling, so that it could save me a lot of time. But like I say, sometimes rather than go and find the word in the Torah and then run the program, it's just easy for me to just do it myself. But in this case, I've done it differently. So Tahane is filled, the He is filled with an Aleph, and the Tav is filled with a Yud. For the wheat, the He is filled with a He. And then the Etrog, the Tav has no Yud. If we add they all together, all these different fillings of all these fruits, this is the fruit that the sages say. This is the 3 fruit as mentioned in the Talmud. And this is the fruit as mentioned in the Midrash. Say it's an etrog. I'm not going into the details why. I'm not analysing that. I'm just giving you the numbers. For all those filled, and I've showed you how I filled them, it comes to 3,529, which is exactly the filling, the first filling out of, at the level of absolute, where the He is filled with a He and the Vav is filled with a Vav. There's equivalency between all the different fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and this. This is what's given us the work to do. This is what's given us the work to do, to sift good from bad, truth from lie. Okay? And it's connected somehow to the concept of Yitzchak loved Esav, because without giving us this work to do and this very difficult process, what is the truth, what is the lie regarding Mashiach ben Yosef, if you just concentrate on that alone, it's nearly impossible to sift falsehood from lie, because there's been a lot of intentional lies given to us, and men are busy creating a lot of concealment. When they think they're fulfilling the Torah or the will of God, they're actually doing a lot to create more concealment, and it's very difficult to trace what happened when and what is the truth and the lies behind it. It's very difficult to sift truth and life from the whole concept of the Mashiach ben Yosef as found in Christianity. It's very difficult to know what is the truth and the lie. You need a revelation of the Or Aganus, but that's a whole other lesson. Without a specific illumination, you are not able to clarify the matter properly. You're not able to clarify matters sufficiently to reveal the difference between the truth and the lie, because you've got too much ego getting in the way to be able to clarify truth from ego. So you need to at least be attached in some way, or have experienced in some way the or agonus. And it's a very desirable thing for us to be able to access that hidden light. It's called the hidden light. I can't go into that in this lesson, but if you've got a prayer that you want for this new year, pray to have a revelation of the hidden light, the agonus, because nothing will make sense without it. We won't be able to complete the clarification that needs to be completed to reveal the truth and the light, to overwhelm all the forces of Esav in order to reveal that inner light. Okay, so the etrog is filled where the tav has no yud. The tahane, the tav with a yud. Okay, if it was to be filled with the yud, it adds up to be equivalent to this. But if it was to be filled, this etrog with the yod, they've got another significant number here, because Yaakov and Esav, unity between body and soul, Israel and the nations, and that's also the same as grape, isn't it? Regular and ordinary is the same as grape. So there's equivalency there. But if we take both unities, Yaakov and Esav, when Yaakov has not got the vav that represents the truth, i.e. give truth to Yaakov. So when we've got the vav that comes from Eliyahu Hanavi has 5 times in Tanakh a missing vav, and Yaakov has 5 times an additional vav, and it represents the truth. That's why we need Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi represents perfected physicality, Gashmiyuth. That's why he went alive into heaven. Yaakov represents perfected soul. They need to be united together. So, and Esav represents Gashmiyuth, materiality, physicality, body, vessel. We've got to get our Esav, which is subject to the forces of Satan, up to the level of Eliyahu Hanavi. Got to have shalom. That's why when you see Eliyahu Hanavi, you've got to bless him with shalom, because he represents Esav in a way, and Esav has got the same gematria as shalom, 376. We get our shalom when we wrestle the forces of Esav, the forces of the nation, the forces of disgruntled egos, and subdue them to the side of holiness. So if we take both of these, the regular of Yaakov and Esav and the regular of Yaakov and Esav, when they're corrected, it comes to 1122. So that's the whole point. The whole point is to not just sort good from evil, but to transform evil into good. Okay? Because a soul without a body is a poltergeist, by the way. We need a body. The whole world was created, not just Israel. The 70 nations must surround Israel for good. The body must serve the soul, not the soul the body. But the soul be enslaved in the body. Cream and honey he shall eat when he knows how to reject evil and choose good. So a square ordinal of that comes to 1112, exactly the same as that. Yosef is still alive, Od Yosef Chai. That's the ultimate truth that must be given over to Yaakov. As we can see up here, there's a double connection between this and this. So this power to be able to discern, wrestle the forces of Esav to reveal the truth, it takes us from a state of immaturity to maturity. This is talking about Mashiach. Mashiach will eat chema udvash. When we are able to perceive, the truth from the lie. Because the lie is going to inflame our ego. He's going to give us a false sense of identity. He's going to give us an alter ego, a shadow that's going to dominate over our true higher self, which is a spark of the name of Yod-Heh-Waw. It's a spark of the Mashiach. We're going to conceal that within ourselves. We're not going to be able to sift truth from lie. Sometimes it's very difficult because we all have an ego that we've got to wrestle. There's an ego that needs to be wrestled out there, but there's also one within. And sometimes, because we're not in a place to deal with the ego out in the macrocosm, this is dealing with the ego in the macrocosm. This is not talking about me personally. However, I've got my own personal battles between my own body and soul that I've got to accomplish in the best way that I possibly know how. So we've all got this at the microcosmic level, and sometimes the fact that we change in the what we change in the microcosm, what we overcome in the microcosm, affects the macrocosm itself. So there is a connection between microcosm and macrocosm. What we do in the little impacts the big. It's like the butterfly effect. So there's a double connection, because 346 is the regular and ordinal of Od Yosef Chai, and 346 times 5 is 1730, which is connected to the square ordinal plus the triangular number of that. And then we've got this. They betrayed the Lord, for they begot strange children. Now a month shall consume them with their fields. Okay, so this is taken from Ecclesiastes. No doubt there's a great deal of mystery involved with this, but it's equivalent to the square ordinal of this statement here. I've not done an analysis on that verse, a deep analysis on that verse, so I'm not 100% sure what the mysteries are that are concealed in that, but there's obviously some because of the equivalency with this and seeing how important it is. Okay. And then you got this concept, the earthquake. So Hara'ash comes to a regular of 575, which is the same as in evil inclination, which is synonymous with Esav and Satan and the angel of death. It's got a square ordinal, however, of 1122, and it's one of the concealments of the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. It's Elijah. There's the three concealments of the earthquake, the wind and the fire. This being the earthquake. It conceals the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh was not there. We're trying to reveal the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. This is revealed through the still small voice. There's an equivalence between the still small voice and King David, because the still small voice comes to 334 and the ordinal comes to 100, which together come to 434. Mashiach ben Dawid. Mashiach ben Dawid reveals the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. This name, this phenomena, this concealment, this husk, is connected to the concept of the void, the bohu, as in bohu v'tohu, or tohu v'bohu, sorry. So, and that could be connected to the whole concept of the remez, the hints of the Torah, because it's connected ultimately to exiles, and each exile is connected to an interpretation of the Torah. Is a concealment of the interpretation of the Torah. This is possibly a concealment of remez. So we can use gematria, in other words, to reveal the truth. Remez is associated with gematria, it's hints. We've got to use the hints of the Torah in order to reveal that needs revealing, and to overcome this husk, the evil inclination. It says Tzva'ot rests there. So even though there's not the name Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, there's a holy name at Tzva'ot, which means armies. Okay. And with that, I will say shalom. This is a very auspicious time. It's Rosh HaShanah on Shabbat, so Erev Rosh HaShanah today, which is Friday. I wish you all a good and sweet new year. And I pray that you're all blessed to overcome the forces of Esav in your own life, subdue your ego to the side of holy, and for that to impact the macrocosm as a whole. And I just pray that you have a very blessed time and lots of shalom. Shalom.